Hey, welcome to Q&A, where you ask your questions and I do my best to answer them. You can post your questions on slido.com using the hashtag ALC22. Got a great question here, a question that comes up frequently in discussions, probably a question that you have asked yourself, if not others, before. It's really a question that I think is one of the things that people often wrestle with as an objection to belief in Jesus, or even something people struggle with as a consequence of believing in Jesus and experiencing his grace and his power. And so I'm guessing you have already worked out what the question is. Why doesn't God stop evil in the world? And as I say, it's a perennial question. It's a question that comes up a lot. And I wish there was a nice, tightly packaged answer that would address everything. But there isn't. Let me start by saying that there are two types of evil: natural evil and what I would call moral evil. Natural evil is things like earthquakes, tsunamis, famines, those sorts of things that are caused by nature, that kill people indiscriminately and I would say senselessly. It's a fact of nature. There's nothing we can really do about it. But I don't think that's really behind the question. I think it's referring to the other type of evil, which is a moral evil. Moral evil is explained by the fact that people commit all sorts of atrocities against one another, from people lying, from cheating, from hurting one another, from murder, all the way up to going to war, etc. Those sorts of things. Things that people do out of themselves. That's why we call it a moral evil. And it's a reflection, I think, that there's something fundamentally wrong with human nature. In fact, I think that both natural evil and moral evil can be accounted for as a Christian when we go back to what we would call what we would call the fall back in Genesis, as a consequence of God creating the heavens and the earth and then putting us in there to rule it, to steward it. When we rebelled against God, it wasn't just humanity that paid a price, creation paid a price as well. And that's why we have natural evil. And it's because of that we find indeed that Paul says in Romans 8:28, that creation groans waiting for the people of God to be revealed. In other words, creation recognizes it's been frustrated by evil that causes tsunamis and droughts and famines and all those sorts of things, that earthquakes that kill people senselessly and indiscriminately. It's aware of that, but it can't do anything about it. Whereas moral evil, it's a different type of evil. It's a result of choices that we've made. Now, I know that behind this question is this idea that if God is sovereign, then why doesn't he step in? After all, God's supposed to be loving. So, and if he's loving and sovereign, he has the power and the motivation to step in and to stop it. I'd want to say yes, that you're right. God is love. Not God has the capacity to love, but God is love. There's nothing about God's character in and of himself that is not built around love, that is not built around an expression of his desire for relationship, to pursue the goodness, the well-being, the strength, the health of other people. Which, of course, really begs the question: if God's loving like that, then why doesn't he step in? And it's because he's given us free will. Free will is simply the power of choice. Without it, we wouldn't really be free. If we didn't have free will, we wouldn't be free to choose to love, especially choose to love God, because forced love is no love at all. And so because God loves us, he's given us free will, which means that if God was to step in, then he would have to step in and curtail our free will, because the evil that we experience, the moral evil, is a consequence of our free will. It's a consequence of choices that we've made to oppress, to hurt, to start wars and all those sorts of things. So for God to step in directly and stop evil, he's got to really step in, and he's got to curtail our freedom. He's got to negate our free will, because you can't have it both ways. You can't have God stepping in to stop the evil that we've created, while at the same time allowing us the freedom to live life as we want. because otherwise we're just saying, God, we will make a mess, and then you come along and clean it up. And once you've cleaned it up, we'll make another mess, and you keep cleaning it up. I think we have to take responsibility for the fact that while we personally may not have started a war, we may not have murdered, humanity as a whole is responsible for creating those dynamics where these things happen. You know, I think that often what happens is the reason we ask God to step in is because we lack a perspective, an eternal perspective. You see, God suffered for us. And so that means that he cares about what's going on in our lives. He cares about the atrocities. He cares about the senselessness and the indiscriminate nature of evil and what it does and the way that it breaks down people's lives and all that. But the answer is not to remove the problem, but to deal with the source, which is really what the cross is about. We are the problem. And so rather than remove us, he's removed the source, that express of evil that is expressed through our actions. And as I say, the cross is all about it. The cross is about where Jesus goes to pay the price, to reconcile us with God, to put an end to the reign of evil in our lives. So it no longer has free access. It only has the access that we give it. So why is there still evil? Because not everybody has chosen Jesus. That's what the Great Commission as Christians is all about, living and engaging with it, with a broken world, with people in ways that influence them to make choices for good, to turn away from evil and to begin to choose what is right, to choose the things of God. And until that happens, there will always be evil. And because not everybody was going to choose God, that's why we have free choice. There will always be evil. But you and I can mitigate some of it by the way we live, by the way we engage. We can't just offload it. God, you do something about it. You're sovereign, and then carry on living the way that we want to. God says, no, I've given my life for you so that you can now live as me. You live in a way that mitigate, that point beyond what is to what can be. Live in a way that creates a better picture, a better future for people. So that's why God doesn't do anything about evil. It's not that he's powerless, but to do so would be to remove our free will. And in the very act of removing free will, denies us the opportunity to turn to him. And as a consequence of turning him, to experience new life and to begin living in ways that make life better for others, not just for ourselves. So I hope that helps you with that question. Until next time, God bless.